This is the first budget after the deal between the Liberals and the NDP. It's called a confidence and supply deal, and that means in exchange for moving on critical things like dental care for low and middle income Canadians, or a national pharmacare project, or more housing, the NDP says, if you do that, no surprises, we'll support the budget. Well, the budget is out. Is it enough to keep the deal? Joining me now for reaction is NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh. Mr. Singh, great to have you. Let's just get, I want to parse the details in a minute, but let's go to the headline. Is there enough in this budget for you to believe that the Liberals have lived up to the bargain and the NDP will support the Liberals, the deal's on, the government stands?
With the investments in dental care so that kids can get their teeth fixed and promises for the rest of the program to be fulfilled, in a time when Canadians need lots of help, the investments in housing that we fought for so that people can find a home that's in their budget, they can actually afford. These are some of the elements that we wanted to see. And so this plus additional elements all reflect our agreement, and we are in position to support. We still have our critiques, our concerns around a lack of investment in our overall healthcare system and an approach on the environment that we don't support, but there is certainly a reflection of our agreement in this budget that's going to help people out, most importantly, and we'll be able to support.
Can we just clarify something? I know you got some kind of briefing from the Liberals. There's a lot of confidentiality around a budget. They didn't brief you on any details. Like, can you give us specifically what they briefed you on before? Because I know you have a, quote, no surprises deal here. Did you get, I don't know, an insider's view of this budget?
We laid out our priorities and highlighted the elements of the budget, the elements of the deal are what we use our power to achieve that should be in the budget, and we emphasized what we expected to be there, and that information was received. And now we've seen the budget and it reflects those priorities.
Okay, let's talk about the dental care. The dental care deal is supposed to be $5.3 billion over 5 years. It's about $300 million this year, so it's not a lot. Why is it so little this year? Is it just because the program's hard and complicated to set up, they got to negotiate with provinces, or is that just sort of an incremental step? What's your view? Did you want more in the first year?
No, in our agreement, it states clearly that we wanted the first phase to be accomplished in the first year, and that first phase was for children under 12. And so this is a reflection of our deal. We wanted to be very responsible and phasing in the program. And not only is this year's amount in the budget, but the additional amounts over the next couple of years are there. And it will achieve the goal of next year, the second phase being children under 18, seniors, and people living with disabilities will be able to get their teeth fixed. And then finally, a full implementation of our plan so that everyone who needs help and doesn't have coverage will get that coverage. They will be able to get their teeth fixed. So that's really important, and that's in there. In terms of housing, what we push for, the change to definition, increased dollars for immediately building more housing, that's all there as well.
Okay, so you're happy with the housing. Do you actually think this will expedite increasing the supply, affordable housing, low-income housing?
This will certainly help us get closer to helping people find a home that's in their budget. So there's some concrete steps here. I would also pause to say that this isn't a New Democrat budget in a New Democrat government, but this is what we were able to achieve using our power as 25 MPs in a minority setting, and we're proud to be able to get more help to people. But it's certainly not everything that we would do. We would do a lot more. We would push for more supports for people, increased revenue, more investments in housing. But this is a lot further than the government would have gone. They voted against dental care and pharmacare just a year ago, and now we're seeing that being realized. They weren't going to deliver as much on housing. We increased that significantly.
I just want to quickly jump in there, Mr. Singh. But pharmacare, not much on it. That's not being realized. What's your take on that?
Well, it wasn't envisioned in this year. The pharmacare was targeted in the agreement for 2023, and so that's legislative schedule for next year, and we're going to continue to push for that. That's in the agreement. And an additional plan for how to bulk purchase, as well as the formulary of what medication should be covered in the plan. So a lot of important steps, but they were in the budget or in our agreement for next year.
Okay, what about this 15% tax on banks making more than $1 billion this one time this year? enough on that? Because I know you wanted tax on the wealthiest Canadians. You're not getting that from the Liberals. Is the insurance company bank tax, which some thought would be 3%, by the way, it's going to be 1.5%. Is that enough?
That was what we envisioned in the deal. We said we wanted initial steps to ask financial institutions and insurance companies to start paying their fair share. We would have gone further and included the big box retail stores and the oil and gas sector that are making record profits, as well as you indicated, a tax on the wealthiest corporations, the super wealthy. So that's not there, and that's why it's not a new Democrat government. It's still a Liberal government, and they're not doing everything that we would have done. But that was in our deal that we wanted to see moving on something the government had promised to do, but they didn't do. And we also have an additional permanent tax that was announced in the budget, which is also what we fought for. And that permanent tax on banks and big banks and insurance companies will also provide additional revenue.
Okay, spending on defense, $8 billion over 5 years, or just under $8 billion actually. That will take Canada 1.5% of GDP on defense. The aspirational goal for NATO is 2%. Does the NDP support, I know you don't support the 2%, I know you've called that, quote, an arbitrary goal. Do you support this level of spending on defense?
Well, this is something within reason in terms of some of the areas that we've outlined, that our armed forces are asked to do work and they don't have the appropriate equipment to do it. So we understand that there needs to be investments there. We also know that increased military personnel are required, and those military personnel were the ones that went into long-term care homes in Ontario and Quebec and helped a lot of seniors in a crisis in our long-term care homes. So increased investments in some of those areas, and acknowledging that we're in a more dangerous world, it feels less safe, that investments there to help Ukraine all are appropriate and within what we had envisioned. We would also like to see investments in international development and humanitarian aid, which are not reflected, and again, a critique that we'll have.
Well, they spent close to $1 billion in aid actually to Ukraine. I just want to be clear about that. Okay, finally, sir, on the environment. I don't know how livid you were when they gave the green light to the Bay du Nord deepwater oil project off Newfoundland and Labrador. In Newfoundland and Labrador, they love it. The Liberals are selling this as a transition fuel. They're saying it's geopolitically smart to help Europe wean itself off Russian oil and gas. It's a good transition. It's low emissions extraction. So this is exactly the kind of Canadian transition we need. And at the same time in this budget, there's a carbon capture and storage tax credit, which I know you're against those things for oil and gas companies. So your view on their environmental policy?
It's not the right approach. We're deeply concerned about it. We've said for a long time we need to end fossil fuel subsidies, and instead of ending them, they've increased them. And so that's something we disagree with. We disagree with that approach. Public money should go to workers. Public money should go to investing in clean energy. So this is the wrong approach. And the Bay du Nord project is a project we do not support. We think that was the wrong way forward, particularly given another scathing report from the IPCC, which states we are absolutely not doing enough to meet our targets, and we're headed towards a catastrophic scenario. So given that, in light of that report from the United Nations, this is the wrong decision to make and the wrong approach.
Okay, wrong decision on that, but you're, of course, just to be clear, folks, you're still supporting the budget. There's still enough. You don't agree on a whole bunch of things like the environment, tax credits on carbon capture and storage. You're still supporting the budget. Fair to say, right?
Yeah, well, there's things that we're going to oppose and we're going to continue to oppose and we're strongly against. And there's elements that we wanted to see based on our agreement that are in this budget that are going to help people out. There's lots of folks that need help. They told us they want us to go to Ottawa to get them that help, and we're delivering, using our power to get people meaningful help in their lives, whether it's getting their teeth fixed or being able to find a home. We were able to deliver on some real meaningful things.
Okay, Jagmeet Singh, I appreciate you joining us, Leader of the NDP. Thanks, sir.